If you Google Murray, you'll see he was a famous commodity trader in Wall Street that was involved in unwinding the Hunt brothers position. He said, I went to elementary school, Catholic school, was picked on for being Jewish. So when I went to middle school in another town, I changed my name to Sinclair, took my mom's maiden name. He says, but I said, okay, well, why are you telling me this? He says, well, I'm related to the Goldmans and Goldman Sachs, and they told me there would be two resets. The first one is man-made. Now, I would argue, Dunnigan, that we are in the midst of that man-made reset right now because it's just too stupid to be stupid, or as Bill would say, too stupid to not be planned. All the stuff that we see around us is just too stupid to not be stupid. I mean, it's just stupid, all the stuff we see. And he said that will fail. And when the second reset comes at the behest of Mother Nature, the U.S. government will confiscate everything that is not American-made.
Andy Schectman, a well-known figure in the financial world, warns of an impending reset war, a crisis that could lead to the U.S. government seizing non-American-made assets. Drawing on historical insights and current economic trends, Schectman explores the potential consequences of a second reset, one that could be triggered by hyperinflation and a collapse in trust in the U.S. dollar. He highlights how central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and global projects like Project mBridge could shift the balance of power, making it harder for the U.S. to control the global financial system. As the dollar's dominance declines, Schectman suggests that the world is preparing for a new financial order where American-made assets, particularly gold and silver, may become the only secure options.
But I do know that the Boston Fed created a CBDC with the help of Lael Brainerd. I know they were, she was overseeing it. They have a couple of CBDC projects. I think one is called Project Cedar. And there's another one that it was used for, that's a wholesale CBDC, central bank to central bank. And there was another one, I forgot the name, that was more of a retail CBDC that they're working on. I've never heard them say they were going to peg it to gold. I do know the IMF, which is a Western-friendly entity, they keep talking about or hinting at it. So I would assume that, when the head of the IMF, as I mentioned, Kristalina Georgieva, says a CBDC not pegged to something is fiat, talking about the virtues of gold in that report she wrote or they wrote earlier in the year. I think they understand that we've reached a point on the road where if you don't peg it, it will be laughed at. It will not be adopted unless through force. And that's really what, that's really all that the dollar is right now, more or less, is something backed by the faith and credit. We're broke, we're insolvent. And what faith do we have any longer with all of the question marks about what we've talked about so much about what's happening in this country? And the rest of the world is wondering what is happening in that country. And everyone's wondering what's November going to look like? What happens if there's questions, a civil war type of question? Doug Casey's writing reports about there's going to be a civil war. It's like, where are we? This is a country that was admired so, incredibly strong for the virtues of, religion and judicial system and elections and all of these things that we held so close, freedom of religion and just freedom in general. And you have to wonder if all of these things are being thrown to the wind, and the rest of the world is. So yeah, I think they will have to peg it to something. Project mBridge would work with a Western CBDC. It would, 100%. It is a very adaptable technology, I guess is the way they say it, in that it will accept central bank digital currencies, all of them. And that's the key to understanding what's happening with Brics, by the way, is not a common currency. It's a common settlement currency. So every one of these countries will trade their own CBDC over mBridge. That's the idea. Every country will have a CBDC. If you take all of the gross domestic product of the world, and 99% of the countries that make that up, they all have a CBDC in operation or development, near operation. They're all going in that direction. You go to the BIS website and look at their innovation hub, and they have all, in fact, this is one of the ones that Rob talks about. They have all of these projects that they are working on to address any possible problem, including a power outage, a grid down, a failure with the system, different currencies, different commodities, all of these things they are working, and we are heading in that direction. Um, at this point, it's important to note that the dollar is not compatible with mBridge. The SWIFT system is not compatible with mBridge, but a CBDC that the West would create would be. And, the whole thing with mBridge is that it will make it so that not any one entity can control the narrative. You cannot sanction over mBridge. And it just makes it so that the West will not be able to impose their will by cutting people off of the SWIFT system. And if more and more and more countries are going to move in this direction and use things like mBridge for oil, and it's very important to note that Saudi Arabia just became a full participant in mBridge. It seems to me they have full intentions of moving in this direction. The oil producing countries, United Arab Emirates is one of the producers or the original designers of mBridge. They're the seventh largest producer of oil in the world. OPEC member just joined the Brics. We are moving in this direction. And so, yeah, I think that by hook or crook, assuming that we would be welcomed, we could see a CBDC that would trade on mBridge. But we're a long ways away from that, not only in our relationship with those countries, but also in just the outright development and announcement of a Western CBDC. And I think we have to have some event first that leads us to roll that out. I've talked about that forever. Could it be as mundane as revaluing the price of gold, as the Dutch National Bank head of the Dutch National Bank said, or Senator Cynthia Loomis talked about? Maybe. Or could it be more scary, as Mike Adams, Operation Sandman, talks about? The night of the switch, they call it. Everyone has already, it's preordained. They're going to dump at some point and create that moment that we've talked about, the hyperinflationary tsunami where interest rates go to the moon to compensate and blow up the whole system. Don't know. But yeah, I think let me put it this way. The technology is there whereby any CBDC would be compatible. And the question is, would we be welcomed? And would we have a system that would be more Western oriented? Would it be the G7 and the IMF behind it? Or would this be, I think what Rob really believes is that what mBridge and the unit and the BIS ultimately want is a one world currency that we've heard forever. A world that is controlled by one group of people pulling the strings way up high, and that's ultimately what they're talking about. Indeed, if the West were using mBridge like Brics, you're that much closer to a one world currency. If you have the West and the East now using the same system, which when you look at it from the standpoint of where we are right now, it's hard to believe. But take a step back and like the BIS is not they're consulting with mBridge. They're not part of it. They didn't develop it. So I'm not exactly sure how this all plays out, but I will tell you that the technology would work, and it would be a much better world if we were all using it, at least in terms of the geopolitical outlook. But I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk. And if you Google Murray, you'll see he was a famous commodity trader in Wall Street that was involved in unwinding the Hunt brothers position. He said, I went to elementary school, Catholic school, was picked on for being Jewish. So when I went to middle school in another town, I changed my name to Sinclair, took my mom's maiden name. He says, but I said, okay, well, why are you telling me this? He says, well, I'm related to the Goldmans and Goldman Sachs, and they told me there would be two resets. The first one is man-made. Now, I would argue, Dunnigan, that we are in the midst of that man-made reset right now because it's just too stupid to be stupid, or as Bill would say, too stupid to not be planned. All the stuff that we see around us is just too stupid to not be stupid. I mean, it's just stupid, all the stuff we see. And he said that will fail. And when the second reset comes at the behest of Mother Nature, the U.S. government will confiscate everything that is not American made. Take it for what it's worth. I still own stuff that isn't American made, but I have traded a lot of my bars for American Eagles, and I lost a lot of silver. In terms of gold, I pretty much only and have always only owned American coins, either pre-33 or Eagles or Buffaloes, just because I've always preferred them. Um, but there are reasons to own the American coins for sure. That would be one of them if you believe it. And I know Bill Holter believes it. And I know Jim believed it. I can't vouch for its validity. But with the legal tender laws being passed, with the performance of the US Mint during the pandemic versus everything else, I would normally say, no, that's stupid. You're going to lose gold and silver. But I would honestly say to you now that I understand it, and I would contemplate it. It's not the wisest thing to do in terms of the ultimate bottom line, but sometimes there are motivations that go beyond the bottom line. So if you did it, I'd understand it. I wouldn't ever advise it openly. If you had other things that weren't Maple Leafs, I might say, yeah, I could see it. Like, 100-ounce bars. Yeah, you're going to lose some silver, but you have a much better form that has better potential and has now 11 states that have passed legal tender laws and upwards ends of 20 that are contemplating it. And, there's something to be said for utility and versatility and an American Eagle. You put an American Eagle in someone's hand, and even though it's only 1 ounce, if they've never seen it before, they're like, man, that is cool. And, I'm sure they'd say the same thing about a 100-ounce bar, but it's not easy to buy, a pack of chewing gum with a 100-ounce bar. So, nor is it easy to buy with the Silver Eagle for that matter, to be fair. But anyways, the point of it is that, yeah, I would contemplate it, but it would not be conventionally wise.
Thanks for sticking with us through today's deep dive into Andy Schectman's insights on the reset war and the potential for asset confiscation in the U.S. Let's quickly recap the key points. Schectman highlights the possibility of a second financial reset, driven by factors like hyperinflation and a loss of trust in the U.S. dollar. He also discussed the emerging role of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and global initiatives like Project mBridge, which could reshape the global financial landscape, making American-made assets like gold and silver critical safe havens. If you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to share your opinions in the comments section below.